Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Game Plan. This is our third year as we continue to go for the new academic year. We have a goodie. We have Dr. Galen Duncan. He is currently the first of its kind to be the Senior Associate Director of Athletics over mental health and wellness at the University of Illinois, Chicago. That's a great, great honor. On top of that, he was a former exec at Sacramento for the Sacramento Kings. He was vice president of mental health. So he has an interesting history, not just even being an athlete, but also being a doctor, but also specializing in mental health with various athletes for various organizations. So as we start off the new academic year, I hope you all enjoy all of the good information he has to share. Dr. Duncan, take it away.
Thank you, Anthony. Honor and privilege to be able to speak here today with you and the folks that get an opportunity to see or hear this later on. I've done a lot of things in my life, but I've started to realize a lot of those things just require time, and that means I've been here a while. So it's a blessing and a disguise. That, at some point I was a young guy with no gray. And now I'm an older man who kind of is reflecting back on his accomplishments and or experiences. So thank you for having me. I'll start basically at the beginning. I'm a product of two Detroit Public School League or Detroit public school teachers. Both of my parents were teachers. My mother was at Henry Ford High School in Detroit, where she taught for 35 plus years. And my dad was the basketball coach and a gym teacher and health instructor at Murray Wright High School, a school that is no longer open, but also had a strong role in my personal development as I spent every waking moment I could in the gym with my dad. Every day I had out of school, I went to school in Southfield, Michigan, in Southfield Public Schools, and every time we had a day off, it was an opportunity for me to go and test my basketball abilities with kids who could really play in the city. And so whether it was summertime or whether it was in the regular school year, I always just loved to be down on 12th and Warren with my dad, just learning the ins and outs of things. I come from a very strong family. A long list of social workers. My wife is a social worker. I have aunts and uncles who are social workers. The first doctor that I ever had a real relationship with was my uncle Eugene Pettis, who was the executive director of a mental health program. And so I spent a lot of time looking up to him and trying to be like him. Early in my life, I lived in Detroit. I was on the west side of Detroit, which is in actually a really, really good neighborhood, which is kind of how you denote Detroit. Like there's good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. And you can go one block and a neighborhood is one, beautiful, great houses, everybody's lawn is kept. But then you cross over one street and it's literally abandoned homes, just not a place where you would see a lot of growth and people developing. So the blessing I had is that I could kind of I could go into these environments and then I could kind of like roll back to being home or roll back to a safer place. But it gave me great insight. So at a very young age, 2 or 3 years old, I moved from Detroit to a city called Southfield, which is just north of Detroit. And it's kind of where affluent Black people went to find a home and safe haven and to improve the educational opportunities for their children and safety for that matter. So I moved to Southfield. I remember starting in elementary school and being literally the best basketball player in the school in like the 3rd grade. 4th and 5th graders couldn't do anything with me. When I got to middle school and I got to the 6th grade, I actually remember they had this thing called a one-on-one contest. And you start out in your gym class. And, after you make through your gym class, you play the other sixth grade gym winner. So there's like 3 gym classes. So you got a winner in each class. So you have a tournament, you end up playing, you play those 3. So swept the 6th grade, and then had to go to the 7th grade class. And so the 7th grade class, you had to go to the class of 7th graders. Like they had to come get you out of class. So it's this whole big walk down the hallway thing as you're going into the gym. So beat the 7th grader who ended up going to Iowa State and playing basketball at Iowa State. So it was no mincemeat, and got to the 8th grade class and had to play the 8th grader. The 8th grader, and it still pains me to this day, the 8th grader was a bully in my neighborhood. And I literally first 2 or 3 times blew by him and laid it up. Boom, I'm up 3-0. And we're going to 5. And I get the ball and check it. And of course, at that age, all the kids in the class are going crazy. You're about to get beat by a 6th grader. You're about to get beat by a 6th grader. And he leaned and whispered into my ear, if you make another basket, you'll never make it home. And I look back at that moment in my life, and that should have been a turning point for me, because I basically rolled over and laid down. Because I knew that there was nobody to protect me between the bus stop and home and the reputation of this individual. And I was young and kind of afraid, but it kind of bothered me for the rest of my life, honestly, and has been one of those things that I've used as a springboard. So fast forward, I get to high school, and I'm not on the varsity right away, but I'm playing. I'm starting on the JV. I'm leading in scoring and doing all the things I'm supposed to do. So I get a call I'm in my biology class. I was actually sleeping in class, which I shouldn't have been, but I was sleeping in class. And I got a message in my biology class, 8th hour, said, don't report to JV practice anymore, report to varsity practice. And so at that moment, it got real. Like, okay, all these other people I was beating and facing weren't very good basketball players, but now I was with the best of the best, and I had to prove myself. So I didn't play a lot as a freshman. I actually got put in my place a lot by the older kids. Just for things, physically I wasn't able to accomplish as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old 9th grader playing with 18-year-old men. But I learned a ton there. And I also learned that that if I didn't do my schoolwork, I wasn't going to get all the opportunities I got. And so school generally came pretty easy. I could get average grades just being there, but my parents required more. So there were times where I was close to being ineligible, not by the school standards, but by my parents' personal standards of what the expectation was for me. I learned how to manage that expectation. I learned how to manage the people who didn't want me to do well, who would prefer to see me go and hang in the corners or hang out longer or do things that that weren't really in line with being great, right? You couldn't have told me that I wasn't going to be a professional basketball player. I was 6'3" in the 9th grade. I could dunk a basketball any way you asked me. I broke the school high jump record as a sophomore and still hold that record for today. So I had hops. I could I could play just about any sport I wanted to. I actually lettered in 4 sports in high school. 4 years of basketball, 4 years of track, 2 years of football. And I also lettered in cross country because the football coach made me angry. So I didn't play my senior year. So I went ahead and ran cross country because I didn't like the way that he was trying to marginalize me as an African-American man. And I didn't like the way he was talking to some of my teammates and who were also African-American men. And this gentleman was a white male, of course. And I've always been one to stand up for that type of thing. So he and I didn't see eye to eye, and therefore I left the team and went and did my own thing, football wise, that is. So fast forward, there's levels of basketball, and when you're growing up, you're thinking D1, D1, D1. Well, if you don't know, there's a D2 and an NAIA, and they play good basketball too, and they give out money. And so, I was smart enough and had been schooled enough by my parents to understand that although I was good, maybe I wasn't a Division I basketball player. And so I accepted a scholarship to Lake Superior State University, where nobody had ever heard of it. And when I tell you, I made the best decision of my life going to Lake Superior State. I was actually one of only about 6 Black people there my freshman year in the entire university. And as I continued further, it got down to 3. And so my senior year, there was 3 of us on campus, 2 on the basketball team, and 1 was a wrestler. And I like to call it 2.5, because I don't think he really knew what was going on. So it was me and my mans, and this guy who just really didn't want to get down and didn't understand who he was. So long story short, my time at Lake Superior State, I learned many lessons about life. And I also learned about the aptitude and ideas that it takes to make it in college. See, I know some of you all are medical students and advanced students and things like that, but I didn't understand completely the way that race and grades played out. So here's an example. Hockey players, if they were in a particular class, they got A's. If a pretty girl sat in the front row in this one particular class, she got a B or an A for sure. Basketball players were only going to get C's out of this class. No matter what you did, you were only going to get a C. And that was if you did everything right. I know that my writing skills were on par with everyone else there. And I know that one of my cohorts, an understanding, he went to Detroit Public Schools, and nothing against Detroit Public Schools, because it's part of who I am, but recognized that he was not provided the same type of education that I was provided. And so I had to help him, we had to help each other, but we got through. And so knowing that I wasn't going to be a professional basketball player, it kind of hit early, around my junior year in college. You're not in the newspapers a lot, and nobody's calling your name that much, and you realize you're just happy to be on a team, right? And I learned that, and I also learned that, hey, the reason I got to stay on this team, and the reason I got to stay in line with this, is that I get priority scheduling. All right, I get the schedule around what others get. That was the key for me. Not only was it paid for, but that I was going to get a priority scheduling opportunity. So it was imperative for me to stay on this team, regardless of what was going on, and regardless of the outcome, because basketball was just a vehicle to get where I was eventually going to go. So even after all of that, I had a pretty good senior year in college, and my grades were average. I was 2.8, 2.7 coming out. I had an opportunity to either go and attend a Chicago draft camp, or go to orientation for graduate school. And I just looked at it, I said, I love ball and I love being around it, but I know who I am, and I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm great in all these rec leagues. I can play with the best in Detroit and at St. Cecilia. I can go do all those things, but Jay Rose and Chris Webber are going over here to play. I'm done. I'm pretty much done, right? So I went ahead and took the move. So I get to Wayne State University. My parents are both alums. I go to apply for the Wayne State University program. I'm trying to get a master's in social work because I want to be like my uncle. And I get there and they say, hey, your grade point average is not the best. We want you to take some prerequisites before you get into the program, which again, I thoroughly believe that a bachelor's degree is the litmus test in life. When you're studying, it's really not about what you know. It's really about how you can recall, right? Because the way it's set up to eliminate us. It's set up to get us out of the picture. And not just us, anybody who's not paying attention. The bachelor's degree is set up to stop you from getting to the good stuff. They want people to be, or the educational system wants people to be like, oh, I'm tired of this batch. After this bachelor's degree, I'm gonna just go work. Or they want you to, honestly, what they want you to do is they want you to get in programs and they want you to spend a bunch of money. They want you to get student loans and stuff. And then they want you not to succeed and stay in the program for as long as you can. All right, because that keeps their money rolling. But I learned that to get to the nitty gritty, you have to be around the right people and ask the right questions. So I started engaging myself with other people who might be able to provide me good information and help me through things. I was able to get into the program. I went through the requisites. I got into the program, and actually the way I played it was the requisites ended up transferring in and being some credits from one of my certificate programs. So it all kind of worked its way out. I didn't just take classes that wouldn't help me. So I finished my master's degree in 2 years. And as I'm finishing up, I met this lady, and she offers me a job, just like on the spot, to work at a school-based healthcare center. She said, I need African-American men. I need you all there. And so literally I go get the job. I'm there, and I've been there for like 3 months. And of course, I'm still playing pickup ball. So I'm playing at gyms around Detroit. And my fiance at the time, who I married, because my fiance at the time says to me, hey, she works for the Pistons at the time. And so she says, hey, some of the guys are playing today at this place. They need a couple people. Why don't you take 1 or 2 of your guys and go get some run in? I'm like, oh, I bet I'll go up there. So I end up going up there, we play. And so it ends up being all these guys are like friends and family of the Detroit Pistons. They're, Lindsey Hunter's brother, Grant Hill's best friend, Jerome Williams' brother, those types of guys. And so basically the entourage guys, right? Jerry Stackhouse's nephew, people like that. So we're playing, and, the Detroit came out of me. I'm balling. And so at the end, the guy who's running the program says, hey, do you want to play with us? We have a team that kind of travels around and plays against different programs and different community groups. So yeah, I'll play. And so I got to know this gentleman a little more, and I found out he was the VP for player development for the Detroit Pistons. So as he started asking questions about me, and as we got to know each other, I played in a couple games with those guys. He did some research on me. And he said, have you ever thought about working with professional athletes? And I hadn't at the time. I was 24 years old. Hadn't really thought of it. I'm just, maybe 25, 26 at the time, working through my master's program. I hadn't really thought about professional athletes. I love sports. He said, I got a job for you. So I'm 3 months into the job that I just took. And I just go in there and I basically tell her, I said, this lady just offered me a job to work with the Pistons. And she said, well, then you need to take it. And I was just in shock of that she was willing to let me go do that like that. And for this day, Dr. Chapman, Samara Chapman, is one of my true heroes. And Dr. Ken Coleman, who was also a person who helped in my development, pushed me and told me to go take the jobs, with the caveat that if it doesn't work, come on back, we'll get you a job. And so I went and I worked for the Pistons for a couple of years, and the program that I was working with the Pistons was ending. I wanted to get married. I fall in love, and I couldn't make it on the money that they were paying me up there, because we all know that at the professional level, they start you kind of low on the totem pole. They try to feed you with shoes and T-shirts. And so I basically I told them I was leaving. I left, and I did the biggest no-no in sports, in professional sports. I left without another professional sport job. And so for about 5 years, I was working back at St. John, working with young people and helping them move through their process. Not soon, 5 years in, 5 or so years in, a position became open at Wayne State University in the Counseling and Psychological Services Department. And I felt the calling to go do that. So I went, and because of my sports background and history, they made me the liaison to the athletic department and the Greeks. Pretty much two hardest people to deal with, right? Athletes and Greeks. So I'm handling the Greeks and the athletes. That's my whole caseload there. I get a call from a good friend. Now, you think about this, like how many times have people in your life have said, I'm gonna hook you up, man. I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna look out for you. I had heard that plenty of times. But one gentleman has always stood out in being just the realist, and his name is Dr. Herb Martin. And Dr. Herb Martin was the one who really gave me my first shot in sports. He got me a job working with the NFL substance abuse program, and I started counseling NFL athletes who were having issues with substance abuse. Through that, I met some really cool guys, and when a position came open at the Detroit Lions, I had 2 guys that were on my caseload, and one of them turned to me and he said, "You would be a great player development director." I didn't even know what a player development director was at the time. And he says to me, "Don't worry about it. I got you." He took my resume. Now, this guy is in the substance abuse program, and nobody's supposed to know he's in the program. He takes my information up to the general manager and says, "Hey, look, I'm in this program, and this is my counselor, and I think this guy will be a great player development director." So off of that, he was also a pretty big name. Off of that, I got an interview, and the rest was history. I made it 13 years in the NFL with the Detroit Lions. I was there through the good, the bad, the ugly. I saw 0-16. I know what it's like to lose every single game that you play in a season. I met some great friends, and I, man, to be honest with you, that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I really learned how to do this work and how to work with young Black men in this area. So fast forwarding, the Patriots regime comes in and takes over in Detroit. And I could see the writing on the wall. And another great man, Jim Caldwell, who was the head coach when I was there, was very honest with me about things. So I got a call from Sacramento Kings. And basically the GM was like, "Hey, we've heard a lot about you. We'd love to sit down and talk to you." But my first loyalty was to Coach Caldwell. And I took it to him. I was like, "Hey, Coach, this is what happened. This is what's going on." And he looked at me, dead in my eye, almost like a father, and said, "Boy, if you don't take this job and get out of my office, you know what's going on here. This is going downhill, and you know exactly what's going to happen here. So go." And so I went, and I went out to Sacramento, and I was out there for 5 years. So I missed a couple things. So let me dive back real quick. I got my PhD from Walden University in 2007, and kind of crazy, it was kind of lined up right along the time when I got with the Lions. It's like the PhD opened the door for me in so many ways. And I wanted to get it in something that was a little different than social work. So I got it in health psychology with an emphasis in sport. And my dissertation was actually coaching styles and how they affect players' feelings about themselves and about their sport. So a lot of science-based information on how coaches think, and a lot of questionnaires and things like that along that line. But getting the PhD definitely opened the door for people to see who I was as a professional. And that's when all the opportunities started flying out. So I go to the Kings. I'm there for 4.5 years or so. Great situation, learned a lot, but once again, regime change. And when you're dealing in sport, you got to understand that this thing happens quickly. When the general manager comes in, either he's feeling you or he's not. And if he's not, you're gone. And I was a VP. I was holding a VP position. And so oftentimes they don't want to keep people in charge who weren't of their thought process. So long story short, that situation ended for me. But because of the relationships that I've made and some of the people that I've gotten to know, and God's will, I've been able to always land on my feet. And hence, I'm now here at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I can't say that I've ever been happier. I have a great supporting cast, a great group of people that I work with. And I have an opportunity to be close to my family again, which is wonderful. During one of the things I omitted too from what I've talked about, it's part of old age, is that I'm a retired Army reservist, and I did 11 years in the Army Reserves as well. I was in a neuropsychological unit that helped with welcome home warrior and deployment. So I spent a lot of time with soldiers coming in and leaving, helping their families and people to adjust to, how it feels to have a loved one who was gone away to war and things like that. What I've learned in all of this and all of those things that I've talked about is just the relationships you build. It's the people that you come in contact with and the lives that you can affect and make everything. Hey, look, we all get into professions to make money. Everybody wants to make a couple dollars, that's for sure. But I'm wealthier in other ways. I'm wealthier because, guys that I've worked with like Nate Burleson, who's on, on TV every morning and is now like the co-host, right? I've got guys like Calvin Johnson that I had the opportunity to be around, and Ndamukong Suh, who is likely the most underrated human being in this world in terms of his ability to care and provide for folks. I've got Vince Carter that I spent a year and a half, 2 years with, had an opportunity to watch him lead and still, be half man, half amazing. I'm blessed with so many different people that I've had opportunities to work with and for. Vlade Divac was my boss. I worked for him and Peja Stojakovic. It's amazing that a brother from Detroit can end up in the places that I've been, but it's surely a blessing, man. And look, what my life has been, it's been a charmed life from a dude who ain't that good. I rode on all the planes and I've ate all the food and sat and gotten all the hotels that them boys got in. I didn't make it onto the field as a player or onto the court as a player, but man, what a lovely feeling to be able to help people and push people in the right direction who are the players, right? And I get to see those sides of people that most people don't, the human side. So with that, I'd love to open it up to questions. I'm an open book, man. And I keep it really real. So don't ask nothing that you don't want to really know. If you want the real answer, ask the right question.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you so much for joining and giving us that rich history about your career and your path. I want to ask the first question before I open it up to everybody. Can you please speak to the importance of being prepared for the opportunity? Because it seemed like if you weren't prepared, all these synergies and connections that you had during your past wouldn't be available if you weren't prepared. I think a lot of the younger students nowadays don't know what it means to be prepared for the opportunity. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. They always, what's the saying? You wasn't in the gym with me when I was shooting, So yeah, man, I've always thought about and always had many conversations with myself. And oftentimes people might think I'm nuts because I might be walking down the street kind of talking things out, but that's because I'm practicing. I've taken job interviews with no intent to take the job, just to practice. So if people call me for an interview, I'm like, I ain't gonna take that job, but I'm gonna take the interview because I wanted to practice. Also not being afraid when you get in front of the right people to tell them what you do. I had an opportunity to sit with Abdul Sharif Rahim and with Rod Strickland, who run the G League Ignite. And I don't know if you are familiar with the G League Ignite. Anthony might be, but if you're not, The G League Ignite is a program created for basically for high school kids who don't want to go to college. And they've taken the best kids from all across the world and brought them and let them play a G League schedule. All right. And so another caveat of things that I've missed, I've done so many things in my life. I'm a consultant to their psychological program. So I work with them on the kids' interviews. I go and meet with them about performance things. So I've developed a relationship with them. And so I'm part of the G League program with the Ignite. But like, I wouldn't have gotten the status that I got with them and the opportunity to participate if I wasn't sitting with Rod and Abdul and been like, yo, like, this is what I do, and this is where I've done it. And if you want references, talk to your boy over here, talk to your homeboy over here. You know these guys, ask them about me. They'll tell you who I am.
Thank you so much. I will throw the floor open. Anybody has a question, please come on camera or come off mute and ask your question directly if anybody has a question.
I had a quick question. First of all,
I'm gonna start calling you Doc, man, because you almost there.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving your fascinating history and experience. I just would ask that you continue to highlight your experience, and tell us a little bit about maybe one challenge you can recollect about, going from place to place and job to job, and what were some of the frustrations that came with that? And also on the other hand, like maybe a really exciting and surreal experience you had going from job to job and working in different places and working with different people. Thank you.
So challenge. It's always challenging when you're the new guy, because everybody's like, oh God, here comes this guy with all these ideas and stuff like that. So that's natural. And look, bro, I mean, in the last few years, I'm a brother with dreads now. So I'm experiencing some things that I never would have thought. This is the longest my hair has ever been in my life. And I grew it during the pandemic. I grew it during the pandemic for a reason, all right? Because quite frankly, I was tired of making those around me feel comfortable, if you know what I mean, all right? So they're gonna have to deal with this now, all right? And so they made, like one of my homeboys said, oh, they made you mad enough. They really did. As my man Pac would say, I ain't a killer, but don't push me, right? So those are the challenges that people want to put me in a box. People want to make me out to be who they think I am, and that's not who I am. I am who I am, and if you allow me the opportunity, I'll show you for sure whether that's good or bad, right? So that would be the challenging part, is that you two sitting in front of me as a brother with dreads, you walk in without your doctor's coat on, people might think that you coming in there to rob the place, right? Or, oh, one of the patient's family members is out here acting. No, he's a doctor, lady. So be prepared for that, young bro, if you ain't experienced it already.
I appreciate that.
But it's cool though. It's cool because if you're prepared for it, it actually becomes kind of funny in certain situations when you put people in their place. Now the cool thing, this is dope. So real talk, 07, 08, I'm at the rookie transition program for the NBA. I think that class might've been like DeMar DeRozan and some of those guys, all right? And I'm sitting in the back in the corner, and there's one chair next to me. And I feel this hand that is like, it don't even feel like a hand. It feels like somebody just dropped a whole log on my shoulder. And I dip down and I hear him say, excuse me, young man, is this seat taken? And I look up and I keep looking up and I keep looking up and I keep looking up, and it's Bill Russell. And all I could say is, no, sir. So he sits down. Complete silence for 5 minutes. I'm like, it's racing to this man got 11 rings. This man got 11 rings. He ain't got enough fingers for rings. Like, this dude was a player, a coach. This is probably, in my eyes, the greatest center to ever play the game. All right. And I'd have been around Jordan. I'd have been around all those guys, Pippen. I've been around all those guys. Never fade Magic, Isaiah Thomas. never phased. I was stuck, bro. And then after 5 minutes, I unstuck myself. And I had probably one of the greatest conversations of my life in 10 minutes. He will never remember who I was. If he was living today, he would not know who I was, but he didn't know how much he impacted me in 10 minutes. So that would be my one moment, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
So this is great. I'm sorry I came in a little late. Reg Millen, actually the program director here at Mount Sinai.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, thank you. Nice to hear your story. You know, one of the things we talk about with regard to athletes is the mental part of the game. And you work in player development, you talk to athletes about some of their psychological challenges. Can you talk to the group about that particular aspect, how important it is to address the mental aspects of performance as opposed to the physical, and your role in helping these young brothers or even older brothers who are athletes to deal with their mental issues?
Sure. Look, you can have all the ability in the world. If you can't pull it together between the lines, you're going to have a problem. And, you know, that usually starts off the court or off the field. Like there's other issues that these young people have gone through, the traumas that we've experienced, all of us, because I can see the room and I know who we are, the microaggressions that we experience in life, and the things that we have to compartmentalize to be able to get things done on the field. Like, it's the most important thing, because the system is meant to make you not succeed. The system is meant to make you crack, to be angry. Here's an example. We have a young kid here who's a pretty good player, has an anger issue. He ripped his catapult system off and broke it, which is one of our training devices. And this kid's got a chance. Like he could really play at the next level if he figures it out. I've got a lot of work to do with him. I had a ton of work to do with this kid. And it's got to start with one, respecting himself. Because if you don't have respect for yourself, there's no way you can respect anybody around you. And so once you develop that respect for yourself, you learn how to manage some of your own personal issues and things that you've experienced, and your ways of handling things have to change. And so with that, I dig into individuals' past. I want to see where they've been, and I want to see what their mindset is towards the future. Usually individuals who have anger problems usually end up being kind of selfish. There's usually something around them that has to be changed in that manner. And so, because anger is an emotion that is oftentimes out of control. And so I just really focus on trying to have players have a good self-concept of who they are, because that translates into all your actions. Like if I'm afraid to disappoint you, whether it be on the court as an individual, or a coach, or a parent, or anyone, that's the leverage I need to be able to keep a kid in place.
Thank you. I have another question. So you talked about your childhood of your parents being teachers. I remember you saying that, and your father being a basketball coach.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you wanted to get into the other space because your uncle was doing something on what was it, mental health?
Mental health, yeah. He was the executive director of Detroit East Community Mental Health Center.
Okay, so did that all drill or push your ability to thrive in the educated space? And was his career path what you modeled to get where you are today?
100%. You know, when my dad passed when I was 19 years old, I left that portion out. And quite frankly, my uncle stepped in. And I had a number of strong individuals. My man Keith will know, Earl Moore and Coach Smith, Robert Smith from Pershing. Some of those guys took over and became dad and really looked out for me. So I've never had a lack of good role models. I've always had people who just really had my back. But the difference is that I listened. There's so many of us that have had good role models, but just did not pay attention or didn't hear them. But I was blessed enough to be able to hear them.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have a question? Anybody want to chime in real quick?
You talked about how you help counsel athletes. One of the things about this initiative, we have a swag initiative. I don't think you guys talked about swag. Anthony, did you guys talk about that at all? With Dr.
I spoke to Dr. Duncan before the session about swag.
So one of the goals of this swag initiative, the Scholar Athletes with Academic Goals, is to really address a cultural bias against and toward athletes.
Mm.
Can you talk to this group here, since you talk to athletes and you live in the world of athletes and you on and off the field? Talk about your experience with individuals who have underestimated you because you're an athlete,
Mhm.
and how you deal with that bias.
Mhm.
As well as on the other side, there are folks who give athletes a pass
Mhm.
because they're athletes, and sometimes undermine their ability to develop. So can you talk about living in the world as an athlete and how to navigate that space?
Sure. First part, I mean, I've walked into many venues where people have underestimated me in that order. And I rarely put the doctor up there, but I did it for this particular show. I usually don't present with the whole doctor thing. That's something that just has to come up in conversation, or somebody has to Google me and find it and say something about it. I tend to present as a normal person. But I did find when I was playing that people didn't think that basketball players could achieve things in school. And to where I was, being a Black basketball player in the middle of nowhere, the pressure was on. But I felt pressure from two ways. One, not to sell out and not to not be who I was, but also to show them that I could be that, and I can get down in the classroom with you. I can do everything that you can do. My retention skills are good. I have that ability. So I would say that I had to attack it from both ways. But I've always kind of got a kick out of that. I've got a kick out of showing people, oh, you thought I could just hoop. Well, let me come over here. Let me show you that you also, you have incorrect English right here. We're going to make sure that all these things, all these nouns, predicates, and verbs line up correctly, because I wouldn't want you, using the King's English in an improper manner. I've seen so many people just say to these young people, and it's even happened here. I mean, I'll be honest with you, putting kids in classes that just to get them eligible, or classes that aren't leading towards a degree. And any of you, or Miles, any of you guys, Doc, any of you guys that are working in an environment like that, or have been athletes, you've seen guys who were put in classes that just didn't add up and they never got a degree. Or it took them years later to kind of sort it all out. I think that's negligence, and it's blatantly disrespectful to student athletes to do them like that. I think you have to give them an opportunity, because we love challenges. Put them in a challenge situation where they have to get the grades to do what they want to do, because the ultimate goal here is student athlete. There's nothing around. I've never seen anyone write athlete student, but yet and still, we often function that way. And so I was lucky enough to have parents who weren't going to let that happen to me. But to answer your question, I've seen it happen many times. Guys walking out of here with, nothing wrong with a communications degree, but what's the next step, right?
Thank you. By any chance, does Dr. Given or Dr. Merritt have any questions?
I'm not a doctor, but
Okay.
I just want to thank the brother for his very inspirational presentation. I work with young people in New York City, and I was invited to be a part of it.
I can't hear you.
Let me turn up the volume. Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. I just want to say good job, man.
Oh, thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
I think your testimony was powerful, and we just need to hear more of these types of stories for our young people, without a doubt.
Facts, for sure.
For me, Keith Merritt, I work at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, the first HBCU. I also graduated from University of Michigan.
Go Blue.
So always. And I've been working, I spent 22 years at the Division I level working with student athletes, making sure that they not only obtain their degree, what they were passionate in, but also seeing the things that Dr. Duncan just described, as making sure they prescribe a cookie cutter approach. And one of the things that I never did was do that approach. I wanted to make sure that the young men and women achieve their goals that they wanted to achieve. And sometimes, as he talked about, you do have to challenge people. Sometimes sometimes they struggle because the classes are not challenging for them. So you have to challenge people. And if you're really passionate about the career the field that you want, then you're going to go through some adversity, just like anything else. It's just like life.
Yeah.
You're going to go through, you're going to struggle, but it's how you deal with those struggles that define you as a person, as an individual. So those are the different things that you see. I've been in academic support for years. I love it, breathe it, but I also want to see young adults, especially African Americans, achieve the goals that they want to do, and not put that, no, you can't do this in front of them, because I think a lot of times that's what happens, just like anything else. No, you might want to choose this major. Now, if you want to do it, let's go. If you really want to do it, let's go.
Yep.
So it's all on you. So I think that's always important.
Sure, for sure. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I do have one question, man. Over the last, I guess, 2 or 3 years, our country has gone through so much turbulence, and the impact. And I missed part of the presentation, so you might have talked about that. But I had the opportunity to be a part of a screening this past summer, where the NBA players produced a documentary on the bubble, when they were in the bubble, and the social action that came about as a result of what was going on throughout the country. But the psychological and emotional impact that this has had, not just, we're talking about, seeing Black men slaughtered in the streets. We're talking about the pandemic, and in addition to the social unrest and the political craziness. How is that psychologically and emotionally? How are you having to address that? Is that something that's coming into play now?
I had to address it with myself, to be honest with you. I mean, part of the reason, y'all know he missed this part, but part of the reason I got this hair was part of my rebellion about the whole situation. Yeah, man, it's the only problem I have with it is that I got really angry, and part of the reason that I got fired in Sacramento, and I'm gonna keep this really real. I went hard on BLM out there. I went hard, and I rode with the players on it. And the only difference is I'm not a player. And so, you can easily get rid of me. And, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, because I wouldn't have been okay with not standing up and saying the things that I needed to say at that time. I wouldn't have been perceived as who I am. And, look, I've always told people I'm real. Like, what you see is what you get. I'm a lover of people, but once again, I'm not a killer, but don't push me. And that situation pushed us. I think it pushed us all, right?
Absolutely.
The only part I have a problem with is we're the greatest 10-day country in the world.
Right.
We don't even talk about the Ukraine anymore and the poor people over there.
Right.
All right. When the levees broke, oh, it was a big deal. Right. All right. then all of a sudden it was gone.
Right.
And just like that, we're not even talking about social justice anymore. It's gone like monkeypox.
Right.
And so I say this to say that, like, I don't let people forget. And I don't let young people forget, to include my children, you know, what we're really facing right here. We are still facing the fact that half of this country voted for a man that cares nothing about any of us on this call. So it ain't over by any means. And so, yeah, to answer your question, brother, yeah, I address it. I address it every day. And I remind people every day because although the country has a short memory, I don't.
Yeah, we are amazingly reactive, and the sustainability of the energy that is required to actually be transformative in some of the areas that where we need it. It's just not sustained. We go from tragedy to tragedy. You know, it seems like, you know, and it's you know, there's another one coming in another week or two, if not sooner.
Yeah.
But we have to have a plan in place that we go after and that we pursue, and that's in part Ronald Powers is who invited me, Brother Smalls, and I think you and I talked once before on the phone. So
Yes.
I do some work in New York City around some of these, you know, some of these issues. So thank you for this invitation. This was dope.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for calling.
TJ, I just want to shout out TJ Byerson. What's up, Frat? I saw you as an alpha. I'm an alpha. I saw you as an alpha.
How you doing? Yep.
No, brother.
How's everything?
Good.
Okay, everyone. So it's about to hit the 7 o'clock mark in New York. But Dr. Duncan is about to hit 6 o'clock, correct? You're about an hour behind. So I don't
Chicago
want to
time, yes, sir.
I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to say thank you again for another incredible session. We greatly appreciate your participation, and we look forward to connecting with you further down the line. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to contact you if they had any questions?
I'll put my information in the chat, man.
Okay.
So guys can have it. I'll put my phone number. And then also open for consultation.
Outside of that, we want to say thank you all for joining. We appreciate everyone coming to Game Plan, because guess what? If there's nobody at Game Plan, then we can't have these sessions. So thank you all for coming out. Let's give you a round of applause. Everyone have a great night. Get home safe. Thanks again. This is Game Plan Swag Initiative. Talk to y'all soon.
All right, brothers, take care.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
now take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Uplift the
Peace.
ranks.